All right, so we have Eric Lee here today with us, and basically, Eric is a tax professional. He is an expert on helping people dealing with significant tax problems and issues that may come up with in their life. But he's really good with helping people lower their taxes, and he also understands if you ever get audited by IRS how to deal with it. But Eric, you also have a lot of crazy things that happen in your life. Like, you seem to attract like the worst case scenario. And so we were talking about this just like right before this, and I want you to talk about this experience that you are going through with Dallas County, because it blows my mind this ever even happens to you.
Yeah, so with the kind of clientele that comes through my office, people come from, from all walks of life and have different scenarios for their businesses and their personal income stuff that they've got going on. It's all just kind of crazy stuff. But I've had people before that, they heard me talk at a seminar like 2 years ago and like just held on to my card. And then all of a sudden they give my card to their neighbor who gives it to their cousin. And then somebody calls me up and says, "Hey, you spoke once upon a time at this thing, and I want to come in because I've got this crazy situation that's going on." So that's the kind of stuff that happens at our office all the time. So we have people that come in and we do tax planning with them in various fashions, whether it's for kids going to college, or whether it's they're trying to set up their own business, or they're trying to leave corporate America and they're trying to start their own thing, or on the side they've bought like 4 or 5 rental properties, something like that. So when we advise clients on new entity formation, setting up LLCs and corporations, especially in Texas and Nevada and stuff like that, that you have to look for a registered agent. So your registered agent is someone who can receive legal notices on behalf of your company if the county needs to contact somebody about your LLC, or the state needs to contact them, they send it to your registered agent. That's what everybody's registered agent is for. So my company, Proline Tax Advisors, is the registered agent for probably 200 something companies at least. I forget how many we're the registered agent for, but so crazy things happen when you're the registered agent. So I got a notice in the mail to the story that I was telling you about the other day. I got a notice in the mail. The notice came from Municipal Services Bureau, and they're like a collection agent on behalf of counties and municipalities and the state of Texas and stuff like that. And so I'm opening the mail and I'm looking at this notice that came from Municipal Services Bureau, and they say that there is a ticket that I have to pay out of Dallas County. I'm like, what the heck is this? I never go to Dallas County. I stay in Collin County like always. I live like a mile and a half from the office, and so I hardly ever even go anywhere. So I call up Municipal Services Bureau, and they're telling me that there's this citation that was issued.
You live in a totally different county, Collin
Yeah,
County.
I live in McKinney, which is up in Collin County, which is a suburb of Dallas. Which is, if I don't have to go to Dallas, I never go to Dallas.
Yeah, it's
Dallas is. I don't want to live in Dallas County. For those people that live in Dallas County, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying I like where I live. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, because Ruth does, so we don't want to offend her.
Dallas County, I'm sure it's very nice.
Yeah.
In parts.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
So there's this property that's in Dallas County, and there's this ticket that's issued to my name, and I'm trying to figure this out. And this is just part and parcel. I mean, this is how I've made basically my career up to this point on fighting government. Like government, whether it's state government, federal government, people come in and they've got issues with government, and they owe taxes, or they owe an assessment, or they're not happy with how the county has assessed their tax, their tax bill that they got to pay. Like, we've made a living off of fighting government. That's kind of what we do. So this isn't too unusual for me. It's really irritating that you have to deal with this kind of stuff. So I call up Municipal Services Bureau. The Municipal Services Bureau says, yeah, sure enough, there's a citation from like June of 2017. I'm like, what in the heck? What happened in June of 2017? And he said, well, you got to call the court. There's not much more I can tell you about it. So I called the court, the Dallas County Courthouse, and Dallas County Courthouse looks it up, and they say there's a citation here, and this is for taking trash out too early. I'm like,
so you can get one that's crazy. So you can get a ticket.
Yeah.
For taking your trash out too early. So I'm an attorney by trade, so I didn't know that you can get a ticket for that. Okay, so
right.
So you get a ticket, You apparently someone who never goes to Dallas County, you took out the trash too early.
Right.
Okay.
So that's what the ticket was for. Okay. So there was a notice to appear to take care of the ticket that was like in August of 2017, whatever it is. I mean, this is 2 years ago now.
Okay, so this is 2 years ago.
So there was a notice to appear, take care of the ticket. You're supposed to go to the courthouse, supposed to go see a judge and tell them how you want to take care of the ticket, or if you want to plead not guilty and whatever else, right? So I missed that court date because I never actually got the citation. So I'm trying to backtrack and figure out what the heck is this ticket, right? So apparently trash goes out on like a Friday, and the trash went out to the curb like on a Tuesday, and so not the meter maid, what's the other one? Code compliance, right?
Code compliance.
Code compliance officer, because this property that we're talking about is not in a homeowners association in Dallas.
Okay.
And so the only policing of the neighborhood really is going to be from code compliance. So code compliance comes by, sees that this house is under renovation. Someone took the trash out a few days too early, and so it's like a $225 ticket for taking trash out too early, which is just nuts. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm all for government stay out of my life, especially with that kind of stuff. So
$225 for taking out the trash early.
Right, and then nobody appeared in court, right? And so now there's I think it's a bench warrant or something like. They were trying to tell me it's not on the criminal side of the law, it's on the civil side of the law. So it's a civil citation with the Dallas County, whatever it is.
So wait. Do you know, like, what's the difference then? So you have a bench warrant. To me, they could arrest you, right?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
You haven't figured that out.
I could be driving home today,
yeah.
Get pulled over, and they say, "Hey, you got to come with me. We got to go see the judge."
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. They did tell me that there is no criminal citation; it's a civil citation.
Okay. All right.
Okay. I guess, but there's still date and time where you're supposed to appear at the courtroom to talk to the judge about this. Don't know. Okay, so I'm going through trying to figure this out. So the court says we can't tell you how to get rid of this. We can just take your pleading, but you got to come down here. Like, you got to come down to the court, come see the judge, that kind of thing. We can't take anything over the phone.
So wait, it's civil, but yet you have to plead to this.
I guess.
Okay, all right.
There's some fight that has to occur in the courtroom. So I got it. They're telling me that I now have to make a trip down to Dallas to come to a courtroom to come take care of this. So I said, where did this come from? And they said code compliance. And I said, okay, well, like, how is it possible that this was issued to my name? And she goes, well, you're going to have to call and talk to code compliance. So I get from Municipal Services Bureau over to the Dallas County Court. The Dallas County Court then sends me over to code compliance. I call code compliance. And I'm like, what is this citation? I have them look up the citation, right, in their system. And they said, oh, yeah, there was this officer who is no longer with us that was covering this area. They saw the trash was out too early, and so they wrote you a ticket. And I'm like, okay, but this address, like, I looked up this address. I've never been to this house. I don't own this house. I don't manage an LLC that owns this house. I don't have anything to do with this house whatsoever. I said, can you even tell me who owns this house? They said, well, you're going to have to talk to the officer who wrote the ticket.
But she didn't. Was it he or she?
So this one was a she. This was a lady that I called and I talked to. So after I talked to code compliance, they give me the phone number to call the officer who actually works that area.
Okay.
And I call and talk to this lady, and she said, well, I took over for somebody else who was here. So whoever it was that wrote this ticket for you back in 2017, they no longer work for us, or they no longer work in this department, or whatever the case may be. So she's taking it over. And so I said, can you look up this citation? And she goes, I can't look it up because it's not in my system, because it's over a year old, and so it's only with the court. Like, you got to look it up with the court. And I said, can you explain to me how my name is on this ticket? And she goes, well, protocol, when an LLC owns a house in Dallas County,
okay,
we try to look up to find out who the responsible party is, not for the house, but for the LLC.
Okay.
So we looked up the responsible party.
And you were the registered agent.
Well, I'm not the registered agent. That's the funny part. Okay, so Eric Lee, I'm not the registered agent.
Okay.
I have my company, Capital Business Services, LLC. Capital Business Services is the registered agent. So when you look up anybody's registered agent in public record, it's going to say you either have a human person or you have an organization that is your registered agent.
Yeah.
Well, my company is the registered agent. I'm not the registered agent.
So you're not even, your company is.
My company is.
Has nothing to do with this. So you're not even running this company. You're doing nothing with this company. other than you're supposed to receive citations for them.
Right. So, and I have this happen every single year, usually multiple times a year. Someone shows up, either private process server or the constable or whoever it is will show up at my office and say, I'm here to serve papers on behalf of, to this person or this entity or whatever it is. I say, well, my office is the registered agent for this entity. And so we'll take the paperwork and then we contact the client. Right. So the code compliance officer who works that neighborhood, they looked it up. And it was this LLC that I'm not going to say the name of who this company is that actually owned the house, but it was an LLC that we advised them on the setup of this LLC. So we helped this client set up their LLC. We set it up as a Texas Series LLC, and so this was actually Series B of their LLC that actually owned this house. And I think that the code compliance person who worked that neighborhood was just so confused about what was going on.
Yeah, because series LLCs are new, so that's one of the things. Most people
Relatively,
no banks. Like you talk to any bank, they have no idea what to do.
Yeah, I know. I still get calls from clients all the time. They say I'm talking to this person or that person. They don't really know even what a Series LLC is. I'm like, well, it's been on the books in Texas since 2009, something like that. So we're going on 10 years now. So
yeah, I think that's about right.
I think it was a Senate bill in 2009 that went through. Anyway, so it's Series B of this client's Series LLC company that owns this property, and it's just a flip property. And so I don't even know that it was like occupied by a tenant, or I don't know what was going on. So the person I'm talking to over the phone who didn't write the ticket, she said, well, my predecessor wrote the ticket, and protocol says we try to look for a human person's name to attach this citation to figure out who it is. And I said, okay, so you went from Series B to the main company, and the main company has a registered agent, and then the registered agent has an employee who works for them. So I'm an employee right, of Capital Business Services. I've been an employee since 2013. So they could only find my name.
Okay.
And so they wrote a ticket to me personally. They put Eric Lee on the ticket, and then I don't know who they ever gave it to, but I never received delivery of the ticket.
That's the craziest part of your whole story to me.
Crazy. The whole thing's crazy.
Well, the whole thing's crazy. But the purpose of a registered agent is the person you're supposed to serve.
Right.
So how can they claim not to know where you are? I mean, your address on the whole thing is so people can serve you. But this officer's saying, oh, we couldn't find you.
Right. So what I was told that they did was they looked up when Capital Business Services LLC, my LLC, when that was formed back in 2013, my personal name was listed as the manager of Capital Business Services. So they went into public record. They dug through the public record. I don't know if they just couldn't figure stuff out, but they went to the registered agent LLC and then went to me and pulled my name from 2013 to figure out who they're going to write this ticket to.
Yeah. So
which is crazy.
So when you told me this story, it blows my mind, because it's like that. I mean, one, that's terrifying, because right now you haven't resolved the issue.
Right.
So
and I didn't even know the ticket existed.
Because they're telling you now, okay, show up at court.
Yeah.
My understanding, the whole reason that I'm not a criminal law attorney, so I don't know this. I did criminal law for a little while, but usually when the court's saying, hey, show up and we'll deal with this, that's to arrest you.
Right.
And then they throw you in a jail cell. And so once you're in the jail cell, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get back to work. So the first thing that you want to do is just plea.
Right.
Because they bring you in and go, okay, now plead to your thing. And so everybody just wants to get out of jail. So they say, okay, I'm guilty. I'll pay my fine and everything.
Right.
And it's a whole system, almost like a scam, to get money out of people.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that really just, about your story, that really just bothers me, is because I think when you run in and you start looking at these situations, you start going, okay, so we want more government influence in our life.
Oh man. I'm not yet. See, and this is what my wife and I were talking about, because I've got 4 kids. I know you've got a bunch of kids too. So my wife and I were talking about this the other day.
I beat him. I got 5.
He did. He did beat me. He's got 5.
I'm better.
That's right. Yeah. We got 9 kids between 2 of us.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
Crazy.
We got terrorists.
It's almost
everywhere.
2 full basketball teams.
I know, it's crazy. I don't know what I was thinking.
That's crazy.
Don't do that.
Anyway, so I was talking to my wife, and so I have my youngest son. He just turned 3 years old.
Okay.
And my wife and I were talking about this the other day. I said, do you realize that in 30 years from now, when he's 33 years old, he still then won't be as old as I am now? And I'm like, Just think about that for a second. When Landon, my son, when he's now 3, when he's 33, he won't even be as old as I am currently. Okay. And that's 30 years from now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what this country's going to look like in 30 years from now?
It's so
when
crazy.
When he's my age, the kind of stuff that he's going to have to deal with.
Well, like
that's just crazy.
Yeah, because 30 years ago, I mean, if you go back, I remember. So I mean, I was 7 at that time. I'm 37 right now. So yes, I've been 7 at that point. So I look back. So that was 1989. I have a few memories from that time period, but everything was so different in that time period because, like, you would just sit there and stare most of the day because you didn't have anything to do. Like you'd go to
your friend's house and play Legos.
Yeah, you would play Legos or something, but like a lot of times you're just outside. Like I remember I lived in an apartment complex at that time, and I would literally go outside and play in the dirt.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing else to do. And we have gone from that society where I literally can't, I'm on this thing all the time. Like I distract myself constantly, but you always have something to do today.
Yeah.
Like as long as you have a phone or something, you are always engaged in some way in something.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, I mean, because we're the same age, right? So I remember when I was a kid, like the big distraction was not like board games, it was video games, right?
Yes.
It was watching TV, and it was so inconvenient. I mean, you probably remember those days when if you wanted to watch cartoons, you had to be out of bed early on a Saturday morning.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
Because that was the only time that cartoons were ever on.
X-Men,
right?
X-Men. Yeah. I remember all the time getting up early so I could watch. And I watched every X-Men, and you didn't get to pick the order because you didn't have Netflix. You had to like.
And then when they were over, they were over. Right?
Yeah.
And so the thing that parents always complained about is that you want to play Nintendo, you want to play Super Mario, you want to, nowadays my kids have grown up in an era where their parents have never not had a smartphone.
Do you play video games though?
We try not to. Yeah, I mean, I don't really like video games.
Yeah, well, the hard part for me is, like, honestly, I feel like my kids' video games are too advanced for me. So my kids love Fortnite. They play it like all the time.
My son plays Fortnite during the summer.
And they go, okay, Dad, play this, and I honestly am over.
And you lose.
Well, I lost. Yeah. I actually did really good my first time because I was like, okay, kids, first things first, in military situations, you hide.
Get to higher ground.
You hide. Yeah, you don't run out in the open. So I'm hiding in these bushes all this time, letting everybody kill each other.
Right.
I go, if there was ever a zombie apocalypse, this is what you'd have to do.
Wait it out.
You wait it out and let everybody kill all each other. Because I have brothers that are all my brothers were in the military. So I have one that's a very good prepper. He actually ran websites and stuff for a while. Like Prep to Survive and stuff like that. And so he always would tell me stuff. It's like, you at the beginning of the apocalypse, whenever it happens, you got to hide. That's the key.
Right.
You just got to say. So like Fortnite, the key is hiding. So I teach I played the first time. I get to like the last 3, and my kids are like, "Oh, you didn't kill one person." I'm like, "You don't have to kill anybody.
It's not the point.
You let everybody else kill it." And I couldn't shoot anybody, so I couldn't. Of course, like I was trying to aim at somebody, I couldn't do it, and so I died really quick.
Yeah.
So, but then I teach my youngest son. I'm like, "Hey, this is how you play this game. This is how you're going to win. Is you hide as much as possible." And then he started, like, because none of my kids were getting the first place.
Right. They
were always like. They get to the last 5 and stuff, but they never win the first place. Well, he's my third, and he starts getting like first. I forgot what they call it, like first place kid. And my oldest 2 kids start freaking out on him.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty,
he did something.
They're like, "You're cheating. You're hiding." And apparently, this is like in the Fortnite world. This is very frowned upon.
Oh, it's taboo.
Yeah, apparently, because my other kids were freaking.
To survive is taboo.
Yeah, I forgot what they call it, some ridiculous thing. It's like, "Oh, you're cheating" or something like that. It's like, no, this is how you play actual like shooter games. You hide and you play all kind of tricks and stuff. So, but my whole thing like with video games is like I can't play them because they overload me. However, I can play the dumb ones. So like on my phone, I have like all these really dumb video games that really just do not work at all. So.
Like golf.
No, they have like this thing called Voodoo, like the Crowd City. Have you heard of this?
No.
Like literally, you're like this guy. It doesn't even look like a guy. It's just like a stick figure, and you run around a city. And if you touch other stick figures, they join you, and you become the biggest crowd, and then you can take over.
Oh, so you don't become like one big stick figure. You become
multiple.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and I could play those things all day and just like just sit there and just like go over and over and over. So
It's the simple things in life, right?
exactly, it's like the dumbest things that just make. But I mean, I like that's how I distract myself. But I can't do the complex of like kids today. Like I honestly feel overloaded when I play a video game. Like it's too much for me, which is very different from when we grew up.
Right.
Video games are very simple, like Mortal Kombat. Kick, punch, punch. Like, that's all you were doing. You're just playing the same buttons over and over and over. But today, what kids do with
Sonic
all
the
the different
Hedgehog.
things,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy watching what they can do. And so, actually,
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of split on that because I think that there is a lot of value in repetition. Like the way that you get better at something is that you do it time and time again. I mean, like with your practice, with, you go back and look at the wills and trusts and things like that you did at the beginning of your career. They might be different than what you're doing now, right? And I recognize that in my tax practice as well. The way that I handle cases as they come in now are definitely more advanced, and we have a different response schedule. We just kind of do things differently. Before it was just kind of like notice came in from IRS, so we got to respond to it. Now we get something out the door. It may not be perfect, but now we know the IRS's playbook, and so now
So I want to give this, and I think we'll keep this one short because I want to have you come back on, and I want to really dive in because what you do is pretty amazing in the sense of you really help people save money. And I have this personal, well, this is not a personal belief. This is a reality that people just don't understand. You'll never get wealthy unless you control your taxes. Taxes are your biggest expenses.
Yeah.
Like if a lot of people go, well, I'll just earn a lot more money and then I'll have more money. And it's like, yeah, well, right now, if you make $50,000 a year as a family of four, you don't pay any taxes. Other than, I say that, you still pay Social Security and income tax, which is a huge tax, 15.3%.
Social Security and Medicare, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Social Security and
FICA
Medicare.
tax.
FICA taxes. But you don't pay income tax. You usually get money back.
Yeah, with credits. Well, especially now with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and so on top of that, but if all of a sudden you get up to $100,000, now you have to start paying taxes.
Right.
And it really...
And you got to pay them in increments as well. You
Yeah.
got to do your estimated tax payments and all this other stuff. And
and then you get up to...
really upset about the timing of, when you do or do not deposit your taxes with them. One of the things that I tell people all the time is the IRS loves getting money from you. Whether they get the paperwork, in February or whether they get the paperwork in April, whatever. They want the money there by December 31st. Like they want to have the money up front, right? So, and that goes for payroll taxes. I've got several cases right now that we're dealing with people who filed their payroll tax returns late. Not that they didn't, that they didn't calculate their employees' withholdings correctly. Not that they didn't pay the taxes correctly. It's just that the paperwork was late or the deposits were late by a couple of days. And the IRS has a playbook that they go by that is very, very specific, and they have very specific number of days in which you have to deposit your money, whether it's from a payroll perspective or an estimated tax perspective. Like they want that money, and they're not very shy about telling you that they want it by a specific time, right? And so if you don't follow that timeline, there can be some pretty significant penalties.
I know I paid probably about $30,000 in penalties for payroll tax violations. And that's usually because I didn't file paperwork, or I trusted someone else to pay my payroll and they weren't doing it, or didn't withdraw it from my account. It was a disaster.
Oh, and that's a huge issue in the industry.
I know, and
huge issue.
Like I remember one day I had a paralegal and a guy showed up with a gun on his hip in my office and was like, "Where's Taylor Willingham?"
From IRS?
Yeah, and I was in the court, and like she goes, "There's a guy with a gun here," and I'm like, I didn't do anything wrong. I was like trying to go through my head, did I kill anyone? What the heck, And so, but then she goes, luckily I had a very good paralegal at the time, and she kept all the records.
Yeah.
And so she goes, "No, we did pay that payroll tax. Here's the paperwork," and she produced it, and he looked at it and made a copy of it, and he left, and he never bothered me again.
Well, and see, that's one of the things that drives me crazy about dealing with government is, you have this forward-looking projection to where government is going to be an ever more present entity in our life, which is just, in my opinion, that's scary, right? Because I believe that you should pay your taxes to be able to pay for roads and bridges and have infrastructure and have police departments and fire departments and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's good, it's a social benefit to everybody to pay some taxes in.
Yeah.
That way we can have something like a military, right? Or the FBI. Like, those are all things that we need to have. But the way that government operates for the most part is that they say, okay, here's our budget and here's what is allocated to us based on the revenues that we bring in through taxes. But we're just going to go over that budget. And so what we're going to do is we're going to then borrow money over and above what the taxpayers have given us. So the taxpayers give us X number of dollars, and then we're going to go overspend even more than that, but we don't actually have the cash for it. So we're just going to go into debt for it. And then that debt that we're taking on, the taxpayers can worry about it later. The taxpayers can worry about this thing that wasn't actually in the budget. It was an overage that nobody approved. And now we have to play catch up as the taxpayers. And so, we do a lot of financial planning with clients as well. And one of the questions that I ask everybody is, do you believe in the future taxes are going to be higher or lower than they currently are? Right. And it just kind of depends. Now, right now we're under an administration where we actually have lower taxes than we had under the prior administration, but this stuff will ebb and flow with whoever it is that's in office, and the pendulum swings in two different directions, right? And
and this kind of gets back to what we're talking about in the future. Like, I totally understand the arguments people make when they say, I want Medicare for all. I'm tired of having my own health insurance. I understand the arguments where you're like, okay, well, if we have a one-payer system, we have more free mobility for work. People can leave their jobs and not be subject to penalties. But then we deal with situations like you do with, the trash not being taken out.
Well, and like in your case, like that guy who showed up at your office, that special agent from IRS that carries a gun and a badge, oftentimes the records that you have aren't matching with the records that the IRS has, and then there's penalties and there's all kinds of other stuff that happens just because records don't match.
And that's the thing that scares me, because I don't know what that's going to look like in the future if all of a sudden I give my health care to the government, and then I'm sitting with my kid who needs a surgery, and they go, the odds of your kid making it through this, really low. So we've decided as a society we're not going to pay for these type of surgeries when your odds of living are only 10%, and that's terrifying to me. But I understand that, okay, I'm scared of the one payer system, but at the same time I understand there's a huge problem. Like, there's so many people that are bound to jobs that they hate, purely just to have health insurance.
Well, the general rule is when government gets involved, things get worse. That's the rule, right? And then there's exceptions to the rule, obviously, right? But and that's what everybody hopes for, which is why we have politicians who run on, inspiring messages of good changes in the future. I'm going to enact all of these good things, and we're going to make things better, and we're going to keep things being better. But the general rule is whenever government gets involved, things just get drastically more expensive. Things get just more drastically out of control when government gets involved, which is it's proven itself time and time again. So it is what it is. We're going to have to deal with it. I think that you and I are in a really good position for job security. Yeah, because there's always going to be a government to fight.
Exactly.
So, whether it's county or federal or whatever.
This last part I want to focus on, though, I want you. The whole purpose I want to do this podcast, I want to help people know just one thing. One thing that if you could tell someone to help them out in their life, if they can understand this concept that you feel and what you do in taxes, if people just understood this one concept, what is the one thing that you would tell people? Hey, if you get this, it will make your life so much better if you can understand this concept. Now, I just threw that kind of on you. But what kind of came to your mind with something that people need to understand about taxes?
So from my perspective, again, I deal mostly with federal taxes, right? So I'm a federally authorized tax practitioner. That's what I do with IRS. The one thing that I would say is that the IRS has seen so many iterations of different scenarios every single year. I mean, you got to think about how many millions of returns a year the IRS sees, and then they see this year after year after year. So this is one big game that's being played here, right? And some people play the game really well and people get mad about it, and some people don't play the game at all and then they get mad about it, right? So I would say that taxes is, anytime you're talking about people's money, they're going to be emotional about it. So if I could tell people one thing, it is that the IRS has default categories for pretty much everything that you might do on your tax returns, whether they're corporate, trust tax returns, individual tax returns, payroll tax returns, whatever it is, the IRS has seen this game played millions of times, and they have a default category for pretty much everything. And so if you don't proactively plan how you want your situation to occur, then the IRS is ready and waiting for you. And so if I could get one point across to people, it's that tax planning is something that really should not be overlooked. I mean, I've had people come in before that, CEOs of businesses, people who have gone to college, gotten MBAs, people have come in and they're like, I'm smart. Engineers are the worst about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They think that they think a spreadsheet can fix everything, right?
Yeah.
So they come in and they put it all out on paper and they say, well, according to my limited knowledge, where I've studied this for maybe one semester in college or maybe 2 semesters in college, I'm now going to use that knowledge and carry it forward for the next 35, 45, 55 years in some cases. And I'm just going to play this game the way that to the best of my ability, and not hire a professional and not get a second opinion, right? It's like when people try to do their own will. It's like when they try to do their own trust, right? They don't actually go get advice from people who have studied this a whole lot more than they have. And they end up falling into these categories, and they think, well, this is just life. This is just the way that it is. So planning is one of those things that you just cannot understate.
So you can't, like, the big point is like, hey, you can plan your taxes.
100%.
Like you
110%.
can put a plan together to lower the amount that you pay. And what would you say? Like you've been doing this thousands of times now.
Right.
How much on average can you save somebody? Let's say you make $100,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a guy that makes $100,000 a year. Him and his wife. How much can you usually save somebody if you plan properly?
Well, and that's a great question, and it's a multifaceted, right? And so the question's going to be, are you paying taxes as far as like excise taxes? Are you paying payroll taxes? Are you paying income taxes? Because there's plenty of ways to get out of income tax.
Yeah.
Right. You just got to put the strategies in place and say, I'm gonna do this instead of that. Right. And if you do nothing, then the IRS is ready and waiting. Okay. Right. If you're trying to limit the IRS's reach for payroll taxes, there's a strategy for that. If you're trying to limit their reach for income taxes, and this stuff changes all the time, right? So just because you had a plan set up for you in 2006 or 2007, that doesn't mean that you should not revisit your plan. You should revisit your plan. And there's thousands of dollars on the table. I mean, this is not a small game. In fact, there's entire firms around Dallas, tax law firms, CPA firms, other advisory firms like mine.
Yeah.
That what we do is we go in and we look at people's returns and we say, if you want things to be different going forward, let's just make a few changes here and there, and then you may not save taxes from last year's return, but we can at least change it to where you're not going to be paying as much tax next year as you were this year. And we're talking about thousands of dollars
every year,
every single year, sometimes generationally.
Well, Eric, thank you for being my first guy on this podcast.
Yeah, thanks, man. This was fun.
Yeah. All right.